Good to have you with us tonight. Are we asking the defense to do more without giving them more? And what is that impact?
Well, the short answer, good evening, the short answer is yes, we are. We are asking the Defence Force to do more and more with less and less money. And certainly what the Minister has pronounced during that interview, they are all very lofty ideals. But on a 49 billion rand budget, they're not going to happen. And that is really the problem.
Did we just wake up today and realize this is where we are? I mean, how do we get to this point?
No, not at all. It's been decades in the making where the union has warned and other parties have warned, other role players have warned that the decline in the defence budget, the decline in the ability to maintain equipment, personnel and so on, and weapon systems is critical. It was already established by the commission that was looking into these matters around 2014, and the fact of the matter is the politicians didn't pay heed, government did not pay heed, the defence budget kept on being cut, and this is the result that we're sitting with now. The Defence Force we should not beat around the bush. The Defence Force is in a critical state of decline, and if we go on this way for about 4 or 5 years at most, in future, we are not going to have a Defence Force that's capable of doing anything, let alone a little with what it has.
Yeah. By that, what do you mean? I mean, we've seen recently, of course, much more demand for the Defence Force, firstly during the unrest, and now with the floods in KwaZulu-Natal, we are needing more and more of the Defence Force to step in and assist. Are you saying this is one of the areas that we will not be able to service, but also when it comes to the unrest, we could possibly be finding ourselves at a risk of internal threats and by extension even external threats?
Well, that's the whole thing. External threats, that's the first thing. We need to decide, is it worth having an air defense system? The answer to that is an obvious yes. Well, if the answer is yes, then we need more money to get our Gripen fighter jets off the ground, because at this stage they're mothballed. If we're saying we don't want porous borders, we need more companies deployed there with more equipment, and the answer is yes, then we need money to fund that. We don't have that now. If we want more humanitarian aid from the Defence Force, we want maritime patrols from the Defence Force in a way that keeps South Africa's sovereignty safe and that keeps its citizens safe in terms of humanitarian disasters. And if we want to fight the internal threat, which clearly the Minister in a budget speech has identified, the security threat that comes from internally in this country, then we are going to need all the equipment we have or can get our hands on. The fact of the matter is, as the Minister says, for instance, in humanitarian relief situations, we are currently using the only equipment we have. We haven't had a chance to build up reserves in equipment. So if the Defence Force starts losing equipment, starts mothballing equipment, it becomes obsolete, and you are drowning your own defence capabilities, and indirectly you are creating a threat to this country's sovereignty. The government must really look seriously into increasing the defence budget. There can be no question about it.
Supplies of crucial equipment critically low at this point, according to the Minister. Are we looking like a weakling, or are we a weakling in the face of the world?
I think at this stage we are looking like a weakling, but it won't take too long before it is going to become quite apparent, that we have been weakened to a state where we are beyond repair, if I can put it that way. We really need to end that. If we want to be a regional force, as the Minister mentioned, and stabilizer on the continent, real role player, we are really going to need to jack up our defence budgets. Our neighbours, like Botswana and so on, they have been spending a lot on defence, not that they're a threat to South Africa, but in the sense that they understand that one needs to also have the appearance and the substance of a good and professional defence force, well equipped and well funded.
Operationally, what do we need to offload? What do we need to keep? Where do we need to be looking?
think we need to be looking at maintenance firstly of whatever weaponry and systems we have. We need to get them up and running, those that have been mothballed, and we need to maintain and renovate, refurbish the systems that we already have and the equipment that we already have. The second thing is, and which is also very concerning, our production capabilities through Denel has been almost reduced to zero. A country cannot afford not to have its own defense industry that manufactures its own weapons, equipment and so forth. That's really something we should be looking at, and an area that needs to drastically improve. And then our air defense systems. We need to get funding in order to renew those air defense systems that we've acquired through the notorious arms deal.
Yeah. You set the target like in the next 5 years we could be in serious trouble as far as our sovereignty is concerned. But if we were to follow a particular expenditure program, how long would that take for us to set up these things?
Well, that's the problem. You see, when once in an organization like the military, once the decline has set into such an extent that sometimes it cannot be arrested anymore, or that when you come to the point where you've decided to fix whatever is wrong, it's gone so far into deterioration that it cannot be fixed anymore, and it's too late, and you're left blindsided, and you've got gaps in your defense system, which if you needed to fill them within a short space of time, you wouldn't be capable to, even if you had all the money in the world. And that is the concerning issue. The longer we wait and the longer we plan, the closer we get to doomsday. And that is just a fact. We should have started yesterday.
Yeah. With all the, one would say, competing priorities in the country economically, in terms of poverty alleviation, in terms of housing and so on and so forth, would you say, I mean, the South African Defence Force priorities need to be top of the agenda with all those priorities?
Well, all those priorities that you just listed, humanitarian, housing, social, and so on, none of those things will mean anything if it's not secure. And the only way to secure those things is by having a defense force that guarantees a country's sovereignty and its safety. And so if we're not going to be willing to spend money and have the political will to shift our budget planning towards a more secure future, then none of these other things, medical and all those kinds of things that the public is looking for from government, none of that will be worth anything if there's no security to keep it in place and safe.
Pikkie Greeff, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us, speaking for the South African National Defence Union. That is Pikkie Greeff.